Buenas and half a day, everyone. Today's public hearings by the Committee on Public Safety, Emergency Management, and your Guam National Guard are hereby called to order, beginning with this morning's oversight hearing regarding the Department of Corrections facilities. Today is Wednesday, December 17th, 2025, and the time is now 8:30 a.m. Chamorro Standard Time. And for the record and in accordance with the open government law, notices for today's oversight hearing and public hearing were sent on December 9, 2025, and again on December 13, 2025. Notices for these hearings were also published on the Guam Legislature website and the Guam Public Notices website. Joining us here this morning is a member of the Committee on Public Safety, Emergency Management, and Guam National Guard, and our fellow senators, and the vice chair of this committee and the vice speaker, Senator Tony Atta. Also joining us this morning is Senator Joe San Augustine, and good morning to you as well, and good morning to Senator Chris Duenas. Good morning. Thank you again, and Masi colleagues, for your attendance today. Now, before we proceed with the discussion, I'd like to first provide some general rules of conduct for this morning's oversight hearing, which shall also apply to this afternoon's public hearing, which shall be as follows. Written comments or presentations shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written comments for photocopying. Comments may be read, and lengthy presentations should be summarized to 5 minutes. Those offering comments will be allowed to present written or oral testimony in the 5-minute time frame allotted. And I ask you to please respect the committee's requests for the time. Once you are done, please remain in the room for questions or additional comments, as may be desired by members of the Committee on Public Safety, Emergency Management, and your Guam National Guard, and other members of the Guam Legislature. Questions and comments shall be confined to the nature of the agenda. The agenda for this morning's oversight hearing concerns DOC facilities, including the Government of Guam-U.S. Marshals Service Agreement for the management of federal prisoners, and ongoing efforts, if any, to develop a new DOC facility in Renewal based on public law and legislative appropriations. For the record, the committee requested the attendance and participation of the Department of Corrections Director, Mr. Fred Berdallo Jr., and Attorney General Douglas Moylan. Thank you both for being with us this morning. Recognizing the urgency of addressing DOC's facility-related issues, the committee also invited representatives from relevant Government of Guam entities to provide information specific to their involvement with repairs to existing prison facilities and in the development of a new DOC facility. The committee invited Executive Director Elizabeth Napoli of the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority, Director Joseph Borja of the Guam Department of Land Management, Director Vince Areola of the Guam Department of Public Works, and Administrator Christina Tina Garcia of the Guam Economic Development Authority. At this time, the chair requests for these individuals, if they are in attendance, to please take a seat before the committee. Now, before speaking, members of the panel shall first be recognized by the chair and shall state their name for record purposes. And then the order of questioning will begin with a panel of senators who each shall have 5 minutes to ask their questions. The time allotted to each senator does not include responses that are provided by those testifying. Personal inferences about the character or motive of any senator or any individual commenting is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing room for this morning's oversight hearing. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form or decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and/or may be asked to leave or be escorted and removed from the room. Proper form or decorum shall be practiced by all present here in the public hearing room. At this time, I would like the committee, again, if you are testifying this morning, I know I see the director here, Attorney General here. Thank you again both for being with us. I do see Director Vince Areola, he just walked in. Thank you, Vince, for being with us. The GURA, from GURA, Liz Napoli, please come on up if you can. and then we can have this, and I ask the Sergeant of Arms to swear in the individuals who are here to present and provide testimony or comments and answer questions from senators on the items that are outlined in today's oversight hearing agenda. Yes, sir.
Please raise your right hand.
Hold on a second. One more.
Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Chair, under oath, you may proceed. Thank
you so much, Sergeant at Arms. Please, if you can, please be seated. And let me begin with this. 170,000 Guam residents, 886 inmates and detainees, 245 DOC employees. Oversight hearings are done by this branch to monitor and support with public policy the agencies under our respective committee oversight. This activity, this oversight hearing, is the most fundamental means of involvement in executive affairs available to the legislative branch of the government of Guam. Colleagues, agency directors, individuals who are in attendance at this oversight hearing, and members of our community who are following today's discussion. The purpose of this oversight hearing regarding DOC facilities is to get to the bottom of the issue, and that is to answer two basic and important questions. What steps have been taken to date to address the department's immediate repair needs at its facilities, and where are we at on the development of a new DOC facility? According to information provided through the department's website, DOC's mission is to protect the public from the destructive action of law offenders through control and rehabilitation. The general management of the prisoner population of both inmates and detainees is the overall responsibility of the Director's Office. Among DOC's legal responsibilities pursuant to 9 GCA Chapter 90 include the establishment and operation of correctional institutions and other places of confinement for prisoners serving sentences of imprisonment imposed by the courts of Guam and other authorized prisoners and other persons placed in the custody of the Director pursuant to the laws of Guam. Now, DOC is authorized by Guam law to enter into one or more contracts with the Attorney General of the United States for the custody, care, subsistence, education, treatment, and training in one or more federal correctional institutions of persons convicted of criminal offenses in the courts of Guam, in addition to its authority to transfer inmates to an authorized facility outside of Guam in response to a declaration of a correctional emergency. DOC is permitted to transfer inmates to a correctional institution outside of Guam in non-emergency circumstances. According to DOC, the Hagåtña Detention Facility is under the purview of the warden. It houses local pretrial detainees, immigration, and U.S. federal marshal detainees. The facility is also used to house inmates that cannot be housed at the adult correctional facility. The women's facility is located in Manilao, outside the adult correctional facility, and is Guam's only holding facility for women. The facility houses female offenders, adjudicated, pretrial status, federal and immigration. Before we hear from the agency heads and our elected Attorney General regarding the first part of the agenda concerning the impact of DOC facilities on the government of Guam U.S. Marshals Service Agreement for the management of federal prisoners, I would like to share a brief video summarizing the committee's motivation for convening today's oversight hearing and our broader objective for providing DOC personnel and the individuals entrusted to their care with a safe and properly functioning facility pursuant to public policy and legislative appropriations. On June 24, 2025, the Committee on Public Safety visited the Adult Correctional Facility in Manilao. The purpose of our visit was to discuss the status of the Guam Department of Corrections Facility Master Plan with department leadership, to see for ourselves the location for the new prison there, and confirm DOC's ongoing efforts to address immediate facility repairs in Manilao and the Hagåtña Detention Facility in accordance with Guam law. Nearly 1 year ago, December 28, 2024, Guam Governor Lou Leon Guerrero signed Bill 368-37 into law in her transmittal message for now Public Law 37-144. The governor wrote, quote, DOC will utilize the flexibility in this legislation to fund some of the critical needs to address the most immediate security and safety issues in its facilities, which will help ensure the safety and security of officers, detainees, and prisoners, close quote. The legislative intent for Public Law 37-144 says in part, quote, the ACF and HDF facilities are in dire need of maintenance, repair, and new security materials, vehicles, and equipment in order to ensure safety at these facilities. This hearing is designed to facilitate progress at both DOC facilities since the passage of Public Law 37-144 and to ensure forward movement by DOC and supporting agencies in the development of a new facility pursuant to Public Law 36-57 from October 13, 2021. Senators appropriated $5 million for this effort in FY 2025 and another $5 million in FY 2026 for a new prison in Guam. Following our June visit to DOC's Manila facility and in separate meetings with the Department of Public Works and the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority, the committee met 4 times with representatives from the 2 agencies, the Department of Land Management, the Guam Economic Development Authority, and DOC between the months of July and October to move things forward on a new prison, particularly those issues concerning an approved survey map to start architecture and design work, financing options based on legislative appropriations, and a request for proposal for the A&E, which we understand was canceled by DOC this past February and then resubmitted by DPW in October. The committee is interested in holding individuals accountable for not executing on the laws of Guam and the United States of America, confirming implementation and following through on corrective measures in local law, federal agreements, and the recently passed Public Law 38-60, and ensuring DOC will continue to have the support it needs to protect the public from the destructive action of law offenders by operating a safe, secure, humane, and efficient corrections system. And thank you, colleagues and attendees, for the opportunity to share the video summarizing again the committee's visit to DOC's Manila facility this past June and the follow-up actions we've taken to help move the development of a new prison forward with the support of relevant departments. Today's discussion and the resulting new policies or amendments are intended to keep Guam's 170,000 residents safe through responsive and effective leadership in support of DOC's 245 employees as they work hard every single day to manage 886 plus inmates and detainees. As a reminder, today's oversight hearing concerns 3 topics, including the U.S. Marshals Agreement for the Management of Federal Inmates, collaboration between DOC and the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority on the repair of prison facilities, and the ongoing intergovernmental efforts to develop a new prison. At this time, I would like to recognize Director Fred Berdallo Jr. for his presentation regarding the impact of DOC facilities on the Government of Guam U.S. Marshals Service Agreement for the management of federal prisons. The committee is particularly interested in receiving any information relative to the agreement status and a plan of action required, if any, to address immediate facility repairs. And then following your presentation this morning, we will recognize the Attorney General. I know that he has another commitment and we want to be respectful of that this morning. If his time permits, we will proceed with the AG's presentation, and then the committee will then entertain questions senators here might have for the Attorney General before he has to leave for his other arrangement. And for DOC's presentation on Agenda Item 2 and the presentations by relevant departments regarding Agenda Items 3 and 4, the committee will receive the presentations by the agencies and then proceed to questions senators might have for participants after those respective presentations. So at this time, Director Berdallo, welcome to the People's House, and you may proceed.
Thank you, Senator Gumataotao. I beg the indulgence of Senator Gumataotao and the senators here in the legislature. Before I read my written testimony, I just want to ask for a moment of silence for Corrections Officer Anthony Babauta, who was assigned to the Hagåtña Detention Facility, who passed away this weekend. Thank you. Buenos and Hafide, Honorable Senator Lujo Shawn Gumataotao, and members present with the 38th Guam Legislature. I am providing testimony for this oversight hearing on the Department of Corrections facilities. I received the notice and issues are topics for discussion that involves the challenges of maintaining facilities at Hagåtña and Mangilao, and for an update of the actions we are taking to mitigate the challenges. Besides the facilities at Mangilao and Hagåtña being old and vulnerable for major security breaches, especially with a high increase of pretrial inmate population and convicted inmate population, to have effective countermeasures against these threats and vulnerabilities, we need an increase of our security force for deterrence and response efforts. I'm confident with the support of the Governor, Lieutenant Governor of Guam, and the 30th Guam Legislature's collaboration and support, we can achieve success of having not only sufficient level of security personnel, but also completion of the necessary actions toward the construction of a new prison at Mangilao and after a new detention facility. We have an agreement with the U.S. Marshals Service, and they depend on the Department of Corrections to have the confinement space that is secured and adequate with the amenities for the temporary confinement of their federal detainees, to include prisoners held by Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE. We provide a billing for the detention space. That agreement has not been rescinded with the recent HVAC system defects we encountered at the federal detention site at Hagåtña. For operational security purposes, I'm not at liberty to divulge the locations of the federal detainees. There are several ICE detainees that are continued to be housed at the federal detention site of Hagåtña. The Governor's Chief of Staff had visited the detention Hagåtña and had been helpful with the resources being galvanized to mitigate the infrastructure challenges in Hagåtña facilities. We have updated our MOU with GURA that specifically focuses on their assistance with the HVAC systems at Hagåtña. DPW will be providing assistance in the challenges at the facility related to electrical and water systems. Both these two agencies, with others, have attended our new prison planning task force that includes the Department of Administration, BBMR, Bureau of Statistics and Planning, DPW again, GIDA, Guam Homeland Security, Civil Defense, Military Affairs, Guam National Guard, and with the Governor, Lieutenant Governor's support, we have met for discussions about the previous facility master plan and what change and designs can be done that reduces financial costs, yet achieves the goal of increased confinement space at Mangilao. According to DPW leadership, the scope of the work of the new Northside prison facilities has been sent to the Guam Office of the Attorney General. I'm now ready for any of the committee members' questions. Thank you. Sejos Masi.
Thank you so much there, Director Berdallo. Attorney General Moylan, I think if you can, we'd like you to proceed. And again, thank you for being up with us this morning here for this oversight hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Merry Christmas to everyone. And also, I'd like to recognize yourself, Chairman Gumataotao, Vice Speaker Ada, Senator Duenas, Senator Borja, Senator San Augustine, Senator Barnett, and Senator Montanani. I was asked to come down here to answer questions and to, I guess, give a perspective from the Attorney General's office. And I can tell you right now that after 3 years in office, my prosecutors, investigators, paralegals, and clerks are doing exactly what I promised in 2022, which was to be the toughest Attorney General on criminals and on crime. The statistics since we have taken over administration of the AG's office has continued to increase. Unfortunately, it's also a response to the increasing crime on Guam, which is primarily driven by the meth epidemic that the governor can control, as well as the repeat criminals. The law enforcement entities go from the first responders, whether it's Guam Police Department, Customs, on that end, to the Attorney General's office, to the judiciary, and then ultimately DOC having a role in all these functions. Detainees and then the criminals that are serving their sentences. Those are the primary groups that I understand the experts to my right have been dealing with. I think we need to identify and make no question about it. Who is responsible for the Department of Corrections is the governor of Guam, an elected official answerable to our people. There was a point also, as the chairman had pointed out in the video, that I went down with other members of my staff to, at the invitation of Director Bordallo, to look at the facility. I was very troubled by what I saw, as I think everybody is that goes there, but there's enough property to put a Butler building up. And my perspective on it, we need a short-term versus a long-term solution. Anytime we talk about hardened facilities, and with the way that our contracting industry and everything, all the other bureaucracies that this government is facing, we never get anything done. And especially when you've got 2-year senators, 4-year attorney generals, 4-year governor, and things like that. So my recommendation, and it continues to this day, build a Butler building. There is so much property, and we literally walk through the entire footprint of the Department of Corrections. There's an area there on the lower area that right next to those tents that they have, I think post 10 and 11, something like that. There's property to build a Butler building. It takes 6 months to put that together. You've got the experts at DPW. We have the senators, I believe, that are motivated for that. And you can have a 2-story type of Butler building. I think our number was it can house in the hundreds of individuals and be built quickly. They literally have containers there where they're using the restrooms, their cleanup for the prisoners in those 2 posts that are rusting out. Containers. And you've got tents that were put up in 1997. That's what I was informed. So, Senators, the Department of Corrections is the end result of the criminal justice system. Without a facility that can house these people in humane ways, we're going to have a riot. There's going to be people that are going to be hurt and killed up there if we don't address this and address it quickly. We're seeing the boat beginning to sink right now, I think, to a certain extent, to put it kind of colorfully. As the Attorney General, I oppose any efforts, which this governor attempted maybe 6 months to a year ago. I was being invited with the Chief Justice and other people to meet with the governor to let prisoners out. That was shocking. I didn't even respond to it. Every case has a defense attorney, has a reason why those defendants have been put in that facility. And the end result of our equations here is to protect us. That is what, this is not a political question. We're either going to be protected or not protected. And it's not the Attorney General's office, it's not the judiciary, it's the prison that literally keeps these people behind bars and safe. And the officers need to be safe, and everybody's being threatened in terms of if we overcrowd the prison. So my recommendation to the committee and the senators here, we need to think in terms of short-term and long-term plans. Because when, I think it was Director Camacho, and rest his soul, when I came into office, him and I were looking at it, the A&E, the building up, this is the type of discussions we're having, but this is 3 years later and nothing has been done. And then we've had all these financial problems. So the most realistic approach, again, as I say, is to use the Butler building design. They can withstand 200-mile-an-hour plus winds. You've got the engineers, we've got the facility, we have the capability of doing it. You've got the infrastructure already at the prison. Put the concrete slab down, bring in those beams, put them up, house the facility within a Butler building. I'm open for questions. This is important. The Attorney General's office has been reducing the numbers. As recently as last week, we met with the DHS officials in DC via Zoom, specifically geared toward the Attorney Generals and dealing with the immigrants, the illegal criminal alien immigrants in our community. Guam stood out because we actually are, we're seeking a greater alliance with our ICE people. Agent Sayama, we met with just last week. The representative from Hawaii came in and we met with her as well. So we're reducing in our plea agreements right now and our post-judgment agreements that most of the courts are accepting are removing the criminal aliens from Guam, with restrictions that if they show up again in any port of U.S. entry, they will be brought to Guam and housed or put back in prison for the full amount of service. And that's for the people that the feds won't just take and, try and immediately ship them out. Because we have the deportees that are ICE detainer or ICE warrant group, and then we have the non-U.S. citizens that, by agreement, are leaving the United States, which includes Guam. And with the bench warrant ability, we can put them on the same thing that the Customs does. We flag them when they come in. What that means for this oversight hearing is that we're reducing the number of detainees, and we're doing it actively. I've been informed that, and this isn't the current number, but since I've taken office, in a close alliance with ICE, the 101 detainees have been deported. And I can tell you right now, a lot of these criminal aliens, they're inherently repeat criminals. And they start when they're in family court, and they graduate into the adult court, and it's just a litany of non-U.S. citizens that choose to break our laws. And the victims include even their family members who are also non-U.S. citizens. So any characterization by anybody that I'm racist or whatever, the victims are the victims, whether they're U.S. citizens or not U.S. citizens. And I'll make it clear right now, our policy, and with the help of Director Bordallo and especially Anton Ogden, Major Anton Ogden, we have worked closely with ICE and been reducing the numbers. But it's overwhelming, and I kid you not. You look at the detainees every day that GPD arrests, 50% to 80% of those are all meth related. It's our own people, it's the non-U.S. citizens, and we're seeing the trend. Non-U.S. citizens, it was usually alcohol abuse. But because the price has gotten to a point, everybody is, the lower income people, the non-U.S. citizens, they're becoming ICE addicts every weekend. So you're getting swamped, and they're the end result of a boat that's getting swamped. And I put it out before, I believe there's a bill with our oversight chairwoman. You need to lock that port down. You need to use the National Guard to find out who's coming in at night, where those fishing boats are docking on Guam, outside the marina and the ports. Meth is getting into Guam. And until we stop that, there's no way we're going to stop the numbers going into DOC, because it's not like you can reform these people quickly, and that's the problem we're facing.
Thank you so much, Attorney General Moylan. Also, I'd like to welcome to our hearing this morning. Thank you, Senator Barnett, for being with us. Also, Senator Borja, and another member of of our committee, Senator Sabrina Salas-Matanani. Thank you, colleagues, for being with us this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with the questions this morning, if I can. And again, I do appreciate you both for being with, actually everyone for being with us this morning. So let me start with Director Bordallo. For the benefit of the committee and members of the public who are following today's oversight hearing, are you aware of the key terms and conditions of any active agreement between DOC and the United States Marshals Service for the confinement of federal defendants pending cases before the United States District Court of Guam?
Yes, I am, Senator.
So, if I can, what guidance, if any, did DOC seek from the Office of the Attorney General prior to a November 21st, 2025 continued disposition hearing relative to the state of Guam's corrections facilities, and what guidance has been provided to them when on the record in criminal case 11-00058, the United States of America versus Kenneth Leroy McLean?
Can you repeat the name of that defendant?
Sure. It's case number 11-00058, the United States of America versus Kenneth Leroy McLean.
Senator, I'm not familiar with that case, that federal case.
I just wanted to let you know you're under oath, so I will ask again, did you seek any information from the Office of the Attorney General prior to the November 21st continued disposition hearing?
For that case, I don't recollect we communicated with the Guam Office of the Attorney Generals on that federal case.
I will also just, let me go backwards. During that November 21st, 2025 hearing at the U.S. District Court, when asked by federal public defender attorney Leilani Lujan on the housing of 14 federal detainees, who said, quote, "And so you recently toured the day room or the Hagåtña facility. You said on the record, quote, I went down there, recently. Well, that was probably a month ago when the governor had toured the facility, close quote. You said this on the record, yes or no?
Okay, now I'm starting to remember because I was summoned to if you're talking about me being summoned to the district court in front of Judge Gatewood because they had some case there, the federal public defender. Now I remember that day. The U.S. Marshals were asking for Judge Gatewood that they had individuals that they, because the HVAC was not functioning at the Ganya detention, they asked for that they could move some federal detainees up to the Manila prison. Now I remember that.
So if you recollect then, can I ask again on the record, did you seek from the Office of the Attorney General any guidance prior to the November 21st, 2025 continued disposition hearing?
No, I didn't.
Now, in that same November 2025 hearing at the U.S. District Court of Guam, the federal public defender said to you, quote, right, I recall that tour, and in fact, she was quoted as saying at that time that the facility conditions were inhumane. Do you recall that? Close quote. To which you answered under oath there, quote, I recall that, yes. You were under oath here. Did the governor of Guam, Director Bordallo, tour the Hagåtña detention facility in October 2025, yes or no?
The governor has toured the Hagåtña detention facility. I got to look at the dates when she did, for my recollection, but she has toured while I was Director of Corrections.
You were asked in criminal case 11-00058, the United States of America versus Kenneth Leroy McLean, quote, the conditions continue to be inhumane at the Hagåtña facility. And you responded, quote, that's correct, close quote. We met in August. We met in October. Did you at any time mention the conditions at DOC as inhumane, yes or no?
I didn't indicate it as humane. I indicated it's so overcrowded, 5 or 6. I even have photos that I've shared in some analysis reports that I think some senators have copies of that to show how many people are in the cell, to include the Office of the Attorney General, I believe.
Okay, let me turn my questions to the Attorney General of Guam. Is this the first time you're hearing of this?
Mr. Chairman, this is the first time that I'm hearing of it. Just to be that lawyerly caveated, there's a lot of cases that our office deals with. I'll have to check with solicitors, but had this been a case, they would normally inform me that a government official is being taken in the federal court to testify. So personally, I do not recall ever hearing about this case.
As you hear this and hear the testimony that was presented before the U.S. District Court, does this have you a bit concerned about the situation at the Department of Corrections?
Very concerned. The government of Guam has been dragged through the federal courts for receiverships in the past. I think one literally was 15 to 20 years, if not more than that. We are in danger of having, again, another function of the government of Guam stripped from us because we cannot do our job. So that is this is the danger in receivership.
And so can I ask you as well, is your office familiar with the key terms and conditions of any active agreement between DOC and the U.S. Marshal Service?
I'm not. I was informed, I think it was late last week, that the federal government is looking at, and this is hearsay information, but they had withdrawn putting detainees, certain groups of their federal detainees in our facility, and we're looking at Saipan and other facilities to use. That's the hearsay information that I heard. I think that's why you may be calling this oversight hearing. I also heard maybe the federal judge had gone down to the facility, or at least been reviewing the conditions down there.
And also to hear that there may be federal detainees no longer here, that does affect revenues, correct?
It does affect revenues, but senators, my feeling is that there was a two-part to this, and earlier, and I was, right after the governor toured it, my team toured it. It's a two-part effect. It's an opportunity to get money, and let me step back a moment. Since I took office, I've been talking with the lieutenant governor, literally in the office with him, about the abandoned cars, and especially about an opportunity to have our detainees, our prisoners, taken up to Saipan. They're saying that they have space. There's a charge for that and all that. Nothing has happened on those two issues since the last 3 years that I've spoken with them. And I have gone out of my way to use my lawyers to develop consent decrees, go to court, do certain things. So having said that, an opportunity to make the federal government pay more for a facility where we need money for. It's not just a per bed head. It's we are doing a key function because you don't have a facility here. It's the same thing with the hospital. You don't have a big enough hospital, they're coming to us. You don't have any prison on Guam. We can charge, and again, we're a territory, we're a Department of Interior under them. We can charge a premium to fix this facility and get it done. That's the first opportunity. But when we can't humanely house prisoners, they need to get them out of there because we're going to get swamped. At the end of the equation, more victims are going to occur because they're going to be not put there, and then his men are going to be killed by those prisoners when they swamp it. I literally was there, and I think I had a lady with me from my office that insisted on going. They literally put all the prisoners on the other side of the room, and I'm talking about 50 prisoners. You got the Attorney General, and you've got a guy with a rubber bullet gun that goes into that area, and they're just looking at us. So this is a powder keg waiting to go off up there, and something needs to be done to protect the director and all his men and to prevent these guys from getting out. That's the bottom line. And when you're hearing that meth is constantly getting into that prison, there is a big problem. And we got the dogs. The dogs are even there. They're finding it. It's all over the place in there. So we need to address it. And housing, and I know that I keep on seeing these cycles of prison guards. His men, they're coming in. And just like GPD, they're slowly coming in. The numbers are increasing for the prison guards. But the facility is such that you need to build something and not a 10-year, 5-year, 3-year long-term plan. You need to put a Butler building up that can withstand a typhoon and use it temporarily while the larger facility is being made. And don't speak to the Attorney General's office about releasing people. House arrest, because it's turning into crime victims. Most of these guys are drug addicted. All these thefts, they're usually related to some drug connection. So something needs to be done.
Yes, thank you so much for that. If I can ask from DOC, can you be sure to get to the committee the terms and conditions of any active agreement between DOC and the U.S. Marshals Service? For the record, that would be appreciated. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it to my colleagues, and I'll start with the Vice Chair of this committee and the Vice Speaker of the Guam Legislature, Senator Tony Atta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. And Director Berdalio, is there any communication or conversations about receivership coming from the federal government on DOC?
No, Senator.
None whatsoever?
No, none whatsoever.
Has any planning or consideration been brought up in actually erecting a temporary facility, the Butler building, as the Attorney General has called it, in ensuring that these canopies are taken down and the storage containers and placing federal detainees?
Yep. The suggestion by the Attorney General is accurate about the Butler buildings. And there's another, of course, one, our prison planning, looking actual, with the new, I'm getting ahead on the prison planning to actually take down those domes that were, when we say temporary, those domes are 21 years old. So to actually have a permanent building right where the domes are at, that's a new Northside prison facility on our new prison planning that we've been coming up with now.
Yeah, but that's a long-term, this short-term solution for actually erecting these Butler buildings. Any consideration into that?
Well, the consideration, of course, when the Attorney General said that, he was talking about the continuation of if we have Butler buildings, but pre-trial inmates in those Butler buildings, and that's where there's a little bit of me and the Attorney General discussing, because he's not familiar. I'm the one who's been working corrections since 1978. He doesn't have any experience in corrections, but he did ask me, is there a difference between housing pre-trial and housing convicted? Yes. National correction standards, you have detainees in jails and detention facilities, and you have convicted prisoners in state penitentiaries and prisons. And I was telling the Attorney General, and I actually shared some information with him, that it all started way back in the 90s when they put illegal Chinese immigrants up there in our prison that was meant for rehabilitation. That was the start of, no state governor would ever allow that, right? But that's the past. We can correct this by the agreement I have with the Attorney General. We must expand some confinement space, right? But that confinement space, if you can separate it, should be in different areas than all in the area of Manilao, in one area, putting it within the vicinity, a person who would be confined for an ice pipe, who's a pretrial, next to a triple lifer who's serving a murder sentence. And that one with the ice pipe could be a FSM citizen who's not even a U.S. citizen, and if he gets hurt, the optics doesn't look pretty good, of us, and it's not a secure area, Senator.
Mr. Vice Speaker, just to also update, this is bringing back a little bit of the memory. At the time that we discussed this, tents also, military-grade tents to be used to this transition, because putting all those guys into that type of the tents, the domes that he's talking about, and again, you've been there, you already know what I'm speaking of. So the tents, the military-grade tents, as well as the Butler building were, I think, the two things we were talking about at the time.
I see. And where are we at with the Aganya detention facility when the last conversation you had with the inhumane conditions? Where are we at with that?
Well, that's what we have updated with our MOU with GURA, and we right now today have an assessment of vendor, because we had some quotes out for some vendors. And one of them is taking a look at the possible short-term solution of portable air cons, at least in the temporary. We have the industrial fans that are there. INS detainees are still there. The U.S. Marshal, other detainees, they opted to go to a different location and not be at Aganya. So that's what we're working on right now in that process, and we're discussing with BBMR and DOA on the financing of that with an emergency procurement.
And how much longer are we looking at, being that this was done since October? This conversation has started since October. How much longer are we looking at in rectifying the situation down there?
We're looking, well, again, I would say if everything is smooth with the procurement and the three quotes we have for the portable, and then with GURA working on the HVAC, we're looking at possibly 90 days.
So another 90 days to correct the situation. And since you brought up GURA's involvement in this, where are we at with what Fred, Director Berdalia?
Vice Speaker, so we're gonna go to that later on, but let's kind of focus back onto the U.S. Marshal agreement that we mentioned earlier. But we are gonna hear from them on this, if you can. I'm sorry. Please
Sure,
continue.
not a problem. Okay, so was the agreement with the U.S. Marshal's office satisfied with what you had mentioned is going to happen in the next 90 days with these facilities?
There's going to be a scheduled detention committee meeting, which that Sarah Nedadog also attends and briefs me on with the U.S. Marshals. But I think they were satisfied that we accommodated them when they asked for us to temporarily hold 4 of their detainees before they send them to a different location. And there's other options that were on the table that was discussed in the court, at the federal court, which was the possibility of other confinement spaces like the Guam Police Department and other areas. The Drug Enforcement Agency has some holding cells up at the Serena building. So there's always going to be some sort of form of holding facility if the U.S. Marshals are also considering. But they were looking at us for depending on us to help them out.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I see Ms. Nedadog in the audience. If we can have her come up to the table just so that she can answer the questions on what Director Berdalia mentioned, that there was updated information.
If you come forward, we're going to have the Sergeant of Arms swear you in. So if you're prepared to testify today, then we can do that.
Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Mr. Chair, she's under oath. You may proceed.
So for the record, can you please identify yourself for the committee?
Attorney.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Thomas Nedadaga, and I'm currently the program director for the Guam Department of Corrections.
Okay, Mr. Vice Speaker, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, the director had mentioned that you were in conversations with the U.S. Marshals Office on updates on the agreement. And what is the latest update that you have received from them on the conditions of the Guam detention facility?
For the last several months, I want to say 6, 7, 8 months, we've been meeting at least monthly with the U.S. Marshals here at District Court building. And the primary concern that they have, of course, is the safety and well-being of the federal detainees, and there were growing numbers. And so the discussion that we began with were just some very basic concerns, such as transportation to court, their uniforms, making sure that they were given meals when they were at court, when they were back, and those kinds of incidences which we resolved pretty quickly after the commencement of our meetings. And of course, then the facilities there were growing, and not only do we have our federal detainees, but we have our local detainees as well that we're always trying to address. Anyway, they have been kept abreast of what the procedures were or what the plans were to address the concerns over at HDF. And when the air conditioners broke down, they made their own decisions about what they would do, which is, of course, within their purview to decide what they would do with the federal detainees. And so that was not in consultation with us. They made those decisions independently, and of course, it's within their realm to determine that. So we're hopeful to meet with them in the next week or two to talk further about what are some of the things they can do, we are doing to help improve the conditions so that any of their detainees that are coming in or were already sent or were there at HDF could return, which is a better situation for them, is to have them here on the ground, closely accessible to their lawyers and to the courts. So that those discussions continue, and prayerfully we will have a better update in the next week or two. But as has been said, it's going to take a couple of months to get HDF to the to a situation or condition that's going to be acceptable. So I think our relationship with GURA and with DPW and the discussions that we've been having in the last couple of weeks has been, you know, there's a real commitment, I believe, on all of the agencies that are involved to address this as soon as possible and try to do whatever we can to do emergency procurement of any supplies or equipment that we need to make Hagåtña an appropriate site, a setting for the federal and local detainees.
Thank you for that. Has any conversation you had with any individuals about possible receiverships or any possible lawsuits in conjunction to or in relation to the conditions at the Hagåtña detention facility?
No, sir.
None. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and yield the rest of my time to my colleagues.
Yes, thank you so much, Vice Speaker. I'd like to ask Senator San Agustin, you're recognized for 5 minutes, and again, thank you for being here with the Oversight hearing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the Attorney General for bringing up the issue of the Butler Building. Since the introduction of Public Law 36-57, that would be considered the most improvement if there was ever built, but it didn't happen. And then the introduction of that became law, Public Law 37-144. Going back now to the director, what has the department done to move forward on Public Law 36-57 and even 37-144? Because there's nothing happening other than there's conversation. Conversation doesn't protect inmates. It doesn't protect the Gov Guam from receivership or possible civil suits. So please explain that.
Well, with the Modernization Act, we sold the intent of the Modernization Act. Several times you could see the word rehabilitation on the Modernization Act for a new prison. It never said for a new jail detention facility. It said a new prison. And anyone who has commented on the new prison under the Modernization Act has always used the word rehabilitation. Now, someone who's worked in corrections, both in detention facilities and at Manila right now, I know the difference between a jail/detention facility, pretrial, who are under technically the court's jurisdiction, right? And normally they're under sheriff's departments and police departments. They never had any historical public hearing to discuss how a jail or detention facility suddenly landed on the laps of the Department of Corrections. But addressing the Modernization Act, it always said about rehabilitation and for the long term, the individuals who are convicted, who deserve to be, have to go through programs and be eligible for that. For Senator Dwayne St. when he asked to get, and there was a compromise, $1 million out of the $4 million to be used toward renovations, repairs. We've had work with GURA and DPW, and we've had managed to correct a lot of the deficiencies at Post 8. When there was a previous tour of Post 8, the air cons weren't working there, and there are still plans. Now there are, and even Post 8, just for the record, for the people watching this and the public, is you have everyone there, women, and it's been mentioned, pre-trial detainees, women, federal and local, to include sentenced women inmates. There is no segregation. The only way you segregate those women is put them in different areas of the wings where I used to work at the Rizal, that used to be a detention facility mostly for male individuals. Working on what Senator Dwayne St. bill that passed into law on the renovations and repairs, there's been some security systems in place that we've managed to use. And some of that, and some of the renovations, I believe that we use, we may be able to get reimbursed because of the damages from malware, from FEMA. So we might get some of that monies recovered back on that. So that's some of the progress that has been taking place, and DPW and GURA have been very instrumental in helping us assist that when they're doing an assessment of the Agana detention and doing assessment of the domes and the Post 8 area there and the other facilities, Senator.
Okay, Mr. Director, have you ever gone to GIDA and find out if you can even borrow money so you can speed up whatever you need to do?
So, Senator, hold on. Yes. Later in the agenda, we're going to talk about those plans, but if you can focus your attention on this agreement between the federal marshals and their management of those. We're going to get to that at the very end, though. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay. Well, in reference to the Marshal Service Agreement, as I'm looking at the response that's provided, I guess, by GURA, in reference again to the facility, how far is that already?
I couldn't hear you.
I'm looking at the GURA's response in reference to the facilities.
We're also going to talk about that too.
Oh, okay. Then, Mr. Chairman, I'll wait until everything is done. Then I'm going to ask all the questions because the bill, Public Law 36-57, is already 4 or 5 years old.
Yep.
And the first and the only possible improvement would be the Butler Building. Other than that, everything is piecemeal, and that's not acceptable. The DOC had a shot at $5 million. They could have gone to Gita and find out they can get 30, 40 million, and they could have speed up all the process. The involvement of Gura and DPW would have been more convenient and cost effective. And that's my point. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll wait until everything's done. Then I'll ask the question. Because it just bothers me that 5 years later, now we're coming up with all the excuses for failure. That's all I'm hearing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Senator San Augustine. Senator Chris Duenas, I'll go ahead and have you proceed again. We're talking about the very first issue, which is the DOC facilities on government Guam-U.S. Marshals Service Agreement. Thank you.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, and I understand we're respecting the Attorney General's time and asking essentially the effects. And I think what we have the General here for is the issue of legal liability. So I just want to ask him, after everything you've heard so far this morning, General, do you believe that we're moving towards or maybe currently in legal jeopardy with regard to the agreement and the effect of the DOC facilities not being adequate or up to par or maybe even subpar with regard to housing capabilities for federal detainees?
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Fred is a friend of mine, so I'm going to be very careful in how I pose this, and especially as the legal representatives for the people of Guam, our government. We were sued before. They took the function and made us actually, there was a joint type of agreement on the receivership. We were made to do certain things. There is obviously legal liability here for the people of Guam having to be forced to pay things out of our own general fund because of the conditions that everyone seems to be talking about. Whether it meets the level of receivership, that would be a separate fight in the district court. But I think with this Trump administration, they are conducive to sitting down, Department of Justice, and figuring out, because this is symbiotic. They need us to house their people efficiently, and to a certain extent, we need them, because we're a territory. So, yes, there is a legal liability that's facing we, the people of Guam, but there is a fix. It's a quick fix, it's an effective fix, and if the federal courts see that we are actually doing something other than what's being done right now, which is, in my opinion, nothing, we can avoid a receivership. But you know, this whole idea of receivership, oh, we're all gonna be hurt emotionally, that we had a function taken away from us, we need to get way past that. The healthcare industry is in jeopardy of receivership, the hospital is in jeopardy of receivership. Every function of our government is failing under this governor. And that is the danger. Businesses are leaving. That's all. They're all the signs that the government is failing the people, and we're being injured, hurt, and you call it. But this is the top of the food chain. Without public safety, you don't have a government and you don't have society. Public safety is key in with the Department of Corrections. We pass pieces of paper in the judiciary at the AG's office. We administer it, but the safety of every person in our community is tied into the prison. If they can't keep them safely in there, everybody's in danger, including their officers. So as I said, I'm a strong advocate. Get the Butler building in here, get those tents, military tents, separate the population. Don't put them all together, because that's what causes the riots. Thank you.
Director Badalio, I think there's just no question here. I'm simply cut to the chase. The bottom line is the question being posed here by the committee in this oversight is the effect of the facilities on the agreement. I believe right now, just to be clear, there's no question we are not in compliance with the agreement. I got two questions for you. One is, and I was able to point this out in discussions with the Guam Memorial Hospital when we got resources to them. There is not a resource issue. We continue to see in this government, there's an action issue. So the bottom line is two questions. Why has this not risen to the level of an emergency declaration? And second, why have you not, or do you not have the resources? And if you don't, why haven't you made it clear to us, as well as the governor, to get you everything you need to be able to move heaven and earth on this issue?
And thank you for those two questions, Senator. In regards to the compliance with the U.S. Marshals Services, that we have the agreement with the U.S. Marshals Services, the U.S. Justice Department, the Marshals, do not mandate the Department of Corrections to be held in agreement with them. This is almost like an MOU. It can be rescinded at any time. The U.S. Marshals has not come to us to rescind. As a matter of fact, the U.S. Marshals have the resources that if they don't want, they want to rescind the agreement with Department of Corrections, they can make an agreement with the U.S. military and hold their federal prisons in a military brig that would exist here in Guam if the U.S. military has a military brig.
Director, I don't want to
Yeah.
interrupt you
Yeah.
for the purpose of being interruptive,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
But I want to tell you something. That question is not satisfactory because you're running a facility. You currently have an agreement, so you have a fiduciary responsibility to provide adequate conditions. It sounds to me like if that's the way you want to take this up, then you may, when you go back to your office, type up a letter to them and ask them, would they like to seek other agreements, other facilities, maybe even saying that you're not capable of it. But given the fact that you have the responsibility now, would you be in non-compliance with the agreement?
Well, they've been satisfied, and I think Sarah Netherdock has testified, they're satisfied so far with the answers that we give them that we met, the Chief of Staff has come down and has the DPW and GURA assisting us. We're focusing the MOU with GURA toward the HVAC system, which is one of the number one challenger, but that's not the only challenge, Hagåtña Detention. That facility has been built since the 90s prefab, and there's more other challenges there in terms of that infrastructure, electrical stuff. I mean, I even had someone take a look at the electrical panel there. The other side of that is the showers where the inmates, water and electrical doesn't work there, you know, and that's a long-term, it's going to be long-term just to fix the Hagåtña Detention. Not to also mention that Hagåtña Restoration Plan doesn't want that Hagåtña facility to be there and that to be torn down, and I said this publicly, to be replaced as the Manette F. Guerrero Administrative Building.
So why is this not an emergency, Director?
Well, the Chief of Staff said we're going to use emergency procurement, and that's the
So
thing
it is an
to slow,
emergency.
yeah, to sort of like speed up some of the things that we need.
Have you
for
made the
resources there.
declaration?
We've gotten quotes, and
But do
we're
you
doing
have the
assessments now.
declaration that will actually be facilitating that? I think you're acting as though it's an emergency, but you haven't declared the emergency to give you the authority to get moving.
I believe I'm working with the Chief of Staff, who we're going to coordinate to get emergency procurement. to
Mr.
have
Chair,
that
on the legal
documented.
question here, I think it's cut and dry. We're either going to move and make this a suitable facility in the next 90 days, or we should ask the Marshal Services to seek other services. On this legal question, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator Duenas. Senator Barnett, you're recognized. You have 5 minutes, sir. On this issue of the U.S. Marshals agreement with the government of Guam.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a little hard to ask questions on the agreement. Do we have it in front of us?
Again, I'd
It's gonna
asked
be
for
provided.
the committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, good morning to the panel. Thank you for being here, and Sujos Masi, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak. Good morning to the people of Guam. So specifically on the Marshal Service agreement, if it does reach a point where they feel you're not in compliance with the agreement, would it necessarily lead to receivership, or would it lead to them seeking other facilities? Because there seems to be a lot of questions about the potential of federal receivership.
No, Senator, it will lead to just rescinding their agreement like an MOU. There's an out clause that you can rescind the agreement, and then they'll look for another resource here on the island for confinement space for their federal detainees. And I just want to say on the record, INS, I met with the Immigration Customs Enforcement and Sayama, and he told me with their INS federal people, their contract with the U.S. Marshals, if they had any complaints of where they're at, they're currently at the Hagåtña Detention done on the federal side, they can rescind their contract with the U.S. Marshals. Okay.
So the $1 million that we appropriated in the 37th Guam legislature, I know you said some of the expenditures, but if you could list all the expenditures and tie in how they would address components of the agreement with the Marshal Service?
There's supposed to be a balance of $700,000 because we spent $300,000 up there, mostly at the Mangilaw facilities, and I believe even our parole officers, our parole division offices, which is adjacent to the Hagåtña Detention, had some of their air conditions fixed. So our plans is to tap from that 700,000 so that when the GURA puts out the bid for the HVAC system, that can be used to be, that will be the thing to be tapped, plus other deficiencies that DPW identifies and assess, like electrical stuff and water systems and plumbing and a lot of other stuff that inside that facility needs to fix to ensure security, because some glass panels have been broken in there. When people took a tour, they noticed that.
Thank you. Ms. Sarah, can you, when you're meeting with the Marshal Service, did they ever raise the concern about insufficient staffing at the Department of Corrections?
Clarification, did they ever, the feds ever raise?
Did they ever say, hey, we got
staffing?
concerns about the lack of sufficient staffing, the, inmate detainee to corrections officer ratio?
Like the ratio? No. Initially, the concern was really like transportation and those kinds of things, and making sure there was adequate, staffing to take them to and from courts. But other than that, they have not made any mention about adequate staffing at HDF.
So I know we don't have the agreement in front of us, but I can assume that it basically says, house them in humane conditions. In the instances of the HVAC system, which you said was raised by the Marshals Service, is that violation, for lack of a better term, enough of a red flag, or do you provide that you're undergoing corrective measures and then they say, okay, that's okay?
I have to say that the meetings with the U.S. Marshals has been very supportive, and they understand the situation that we're in with a very, very old facility with constant issues, because it's not just as simple as the air conditioners, HVAC not working, but the capacity to support that. So I think GURA can speak further to that, as well as DPW, but it's also the electrical capacity. I think Director Bradalio made mention of that. So it's not just about getting air conditioner down there and plugging it in. There's much more to that. So they're aware of that. They know the complexity of we've gotten an evaluation now, which is very good, thanks to GURA, in terms of what really is needed. And then the next step is securing it. And as has been said, the emergency procurement apparently it has been said that that's what the next step is. So we're hopeful of that. And our discussions with the U.S. Federal Marshals, they're pleased at us doing that, the government of Guam working towards an emergency procurement plan. So that seems to be, I think with them, they really do want to maintain this relationship, but at the same time, of course, they're concerned about the environment and that it's appropriate for their detainees. So they're trying to constantly, find that middle ground. But the discussions have been very, I think, they've been very understanding, and they want to help in any way they can. And at the same time, they want to make sure they carry out and protect their own mission, which that's what they're doing.
Thank you, Sarah. And I think for sure we're all concerned about the conditions at the Department of Corrections, and as we've seen the population climb upwards of 1,000. I think the current count, according to the chair, is
Incredible.
86, right? So I want to commend the Department of Corrections family for doing what many and other agencies do, which is, try to meet their mandates with the lack of resources or whatever. And so with the Marshal Service and the staffing, I'm sure in meeting those mandates, you have to be creative in how you deploy your staff. So are you able to tell the senators present the status of your overtime for fiscal year 2026?
I believe we are running into a shortfall in our overtime because it's high, especially a reduction of, we don't have the level of manpower. So we're looking at a particular strategy of increasing manpower quicker through recruitment And one of the things that we discussed in our command staff meeting is, since we're handling a lot of the detention, pretrial detainees, about 530 pretrial detainees, the quicker process, and I discussed this yesterday with the Deputy Director of DOA, is to start getting some detention facility guards hired. They're different from the correction officer one. They have the same thing, but they're different in terms of the length of training that will be required to train a detention facility guard versus the corrections officer one. The corrections officer one has to go through all the post-training, about 8-9 months. A detention facility guard, Captain Pakaiwi, can have them train. Just like me, I was a correctional specialist, but in detention in the military only takes 8 weeks to get us orientated and knowing the rules and regulations of what we can operate as a detention facility guard, and it'll be quicker, and we can get. And there's some corrections officers that we've lost that DOA director, deputy director told me we can fill those vacancies with a detention facility guard versus LTA detention facility guard.
So in talking about recruitment and retention and getting enough corrections officers at the facility to make sure that we don't jeopardize the agreement with the Marshals service, how crucial or critical do you believe measures before this body to address recruitment and retention pay of Department of Corrections officers and supporting staff, how important do you think those efforts are?
Well, it's certainly appreciated from the legislature in supporting us in collaboration with the governor to give us the funding, to provide the funding where we can increase our manpower strength, and especially in recruitment of the corrections officers and the detention facility guards, because again, like as I said, we're demanded by. We have a lot of demands for other programs, and for the especially work credit programs, community projects, helping the schools out, and we can't. And with a shortfall manpower, our main thing is keeping Hagåtña secured and Manila secured, because our officers, if they're going out to the community, they're not there. They have to come back, and we're always demanded by the courts to transport or replace a U.S. Court marshal to relieve them from duties guarding a person who's a detainee, or from the Guam Police Department, and that takes a lot out of our officers and those additional demands.
Right, and I think when you talk about the outdated facility, it creates so many problems with the staff being able to secure it adequately, right? So if we get the modern facility, that requires less staffing, correct? So the facility is actually making the staffing issues worse, right?
We have a modern facility that built where those dome tents used to be. That will be that's a bigger improvement in terms of having to have that much staff because of the modernization of security systems that will be in place in that new facility.
Yeah, so I know that part of the challenges of the DOC leadership is deploying corrections officers to different sectors of the facility that require more supervision, which could lead to, security violations. And so I wanted to ask you if you're able to comment on the record if there was incident involving a firearm of a corrections officer that was stolen from this corrections officer's vehicle, which was parked inside of the corrections facility footprint.
Yeah, I could just confirm that there's an ongoing criminal investigation and also internal affairs, and the officer who made that report about stolen firearm is on administrative leave with pay.
Again, Senator, if we can keep
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that
All
time.
right, thank you so much. Senator Sabrina Salas Matanani, you have the floor. You have 5 minutes. Thank you again for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you could clarify, at the HDF, is that where all the federal detainees are being housed?
That's correct, Senator. But there are some times where federal detainees, like the women detainees that are federal, are up there at Post 8 together with the sentenced female inmates and together with local female detainees. They're all in one place.
Okay, but primarily they're all held in Hagåtña, correct?
Excuse me?
Primarily they're all held in Hagåtña, the federal detainees?
Primarily they're all held in Hagåtña,
okay.
Yes.
And just to clarify also, it was asked about the $5 million that was appropriated a couple of years ago by the previous legislature. also during the previous legislature, $1 million was allocated, appropriated for renovations and repairs. You said $300,000 was spent. Was that any of that in Hagåtña on the HDF?
I believe I can check that some may have been spent for parole services signed for their aircon systems, I believe. The HVAC was working at Hagåtña at the time. It wasn't broken when that $1 million was given to us.
I see. It was mentioned that over the last 6-7 months, there have been meetings with the U.S. Marshals regarding the conditions and treatment of federal detainees in Hagåtña, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I guess in the last 6-7 months, have any federal detainees been moved out of the HDF off island?
Yeah, as I can say that for operational security purposes, I can't say the location of where the federal detainees that were moved from Hagåtña detention. And as I said, there's some INS.
That's okay. You don't have to tell me where, but how many?
But yeah, I have to get that number. I think it's somewhere in the about.
Within the last 6-7 months, how many?
I believe for the federal detainees that are being. From what I can recall, I think there must have been around 20 of them from the U.S. Marshals that were relocated out of Hagåtña detention facility.
20?
20, I believe.
Within the last 6-7 months?
Yeah, within the last, I would say, month, I believe, or something.
Why were they moved?
It's the HVAC, just because the HVAC broke down.
Because of the HVAC? So how long has the HVAC been down?
I believe it's just about. I think it broke down about a month ago or something like that. You know, when I went to the federal court, I wasn't summoned, but when I went to the federal court, that time they indicated that the HVAC broke down. So I think it was about a month or a month and a half or 2 months, but not 9 months. It hasn't been.
Okay, so within the last month, 20 federal detainees have been moved off island as a result of the conditions at the Hagåtña detention facility.
They've been moved, relocated. I don't want to indicate the location of where they're at right now.
Okay. And how many total currently are at the HDF?
How many
federal detainees? You said federal detainees are housed at the HDF. How many currently are housed now at the HDF?
I believe we have 8 immigration services inmates there, and they're total. There's 18, or actually 18 down for Hagåtña detention facility. You know, that's the total they're supposed to have in terms of federal detainees, I believe. So I think Major Lozama has. That information, she can come over here and verify those numbers for me.
Director, you can get the information from her. She's not under oath. We hope that you will answer the committee very matter of fact if you can. If she can point it to you, you please answer the senator.
She's the operational security operations for her.
This oversight is on your agency.
Yeah.
And so we're asking you the question, and please support the answer to the senator. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think there's, from the numbers here, there's 8 immigration, I believe, that's showing here, and then at the federal detention site, and then a total of 18 at Hagåtña detention site.
18, that's when you say Hagåtña detention site, that's local detainees?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So almost all of your federal detainees were relocated as a result of the conditions at the Hagåtña detention facility?
Except the INS, except the immigration, they're still there on the same site, the federal
Have you
site.
gotten any indication that they will be relocated as well?
No, when I talk to, because they're contracted with the U.S. Marshals, and according to immigration agent in charge, Sayama, they're satisfied. They didn't make any complaints about their conditions on the detention site, even with the HVAC off. They're not making any complaints to move.
Is there any timeline on when these HVAC units or the HVAC unit is going to be repaired?
As I said, the plan is with the emergency procurement, we can possibly look at 90 days.
90 days?
Yeah.
Okay. How much do you, or how is it charged to the U.S. Marshal Service? How do they pay the Department of Corrections? Is it per detainee? How does that work?
They have a per diem rate of 102 per day, and then we bill them. We from our office we bill for them for housing them.
So it's $102 per day per federal detainee.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, just so that we're clear, and just for everybody that's watching, and just for the committee, just to get just a straightforward yes or no answer, as of today, would you say that the conditions at the Hagåtña detention facility where our federal detainees are housed, are held, are they inhumane, yes or no?
I would say, yeah, they're inhumane.
What about at the adult correctional facility in Mangilaw, are they inhumane?
Where the domes are located at, I said those are inhumane too, having them inside dome tent structures.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Berdalio. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, we're going to move on, unless I have any, I know Attorney General Moylan, are you going to be able to stick around for a couple more minutes for at least, we're going to segue now to the agreement with the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority?
Mr. Chairman, if you request it, I'll stay.
Oh, if you could.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if you request it, I'll stay.
Yes, if you could, because I know there's going to be a question on some of these agreements, but I'll go ahead and we'll get to that point. Again, want to thank Liz Napoli. Thank you for being with us this morning. I know you provided oral testimony, so ma'am, welcome to the People's House, and I'll let you proceed.
Good morning, Senators. And if I may, read the oral testimony. The Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority's involvement with the Department of Corrections is limited to providing professional engineering and technical support when formally requested and authorized. GURA was initially engaged under an agreement, a Memorandum of Agreement, MOA, related to HVAC repairs at the Mangilaw Dome facilities, which was later discontinued by DEPCOR without prior notice to our agency. We subsequently learned that DEPCOR redirected its priorities to address urgent HVAC needs at the Hagåtña detention facility and federal detention. In response, GURA requested a new agreement to clearly define the revised scope and protect both agencies. The revised MOA now under review reflects GURA's role strictly as a technical advisor and not as a procuring, construction, or managing agency. Under the proposed MOA, GURA's responsibility is limited to providing access to a facilities management engineer to prepare and review heating, ventilation, air conditioning, HVAC, specifications, offer technical recommendations, and assist during the procurement process. The Department of Corrections retains full responsibility for procurement, contracting, construction, and project funding. Compensation to GURA is offered at $7,000 and reflects reimbursement to continue professional and technical services. The GURA architectural and engineering staff conducted a preliminary inspection of the Hagåtña detention facility to determine the span of this work scope. The work scope is now specific to HVAC replacement at the Hagåtña detention facility and federal detention and is supported by funding appropriate under Public Law 37-125. GURA's continued assistance is contingent upon formal execution of the MOA and compliance with federal funding accountability requirements. And I just want to say, Senator Gumataotao, I know when we met, at the time that we met, we did let you know that we had an MOA and we were just waiting for payment of the invoice for services rendered before we could proceed with the HVAC repairs that were needed at the 4 dome facilities. And it was, I don't know if it was a week after that I learned that it was no longer going to be HVAC repairs at the domes because the domes are going to be taken down for the building of the new prison facility. And so when I found that out, that's when I said to DepCorps, I said, well, that changes things, because we were waiting to proceed with helping with getting the procurement process going for the domes, but now that you're changing it to the Hagåtña Detention Center, which we already actually had, our engineering staff had already assessed the domes and the Hagåtña Detention, as well as the women's area at the Department of Corrections for what the needs were regarding the HVAC systems. So that's where we're at. My legal counsel is taking a look at the new MOA, and as soon as that's done, then it goes back to them. But we do need to receive payment for services already rendered, and the amount of, I think, $7,500 before we can go further, because none of this is federally funded under HUD. We are just assisting another agency with the expertise that we have in-house. So that's where we're at with it.
Thank you so much, Liz, for your testimony. And then let me just ask again, so you would have practically speaking, you would have some kind of interagency agreement to provide that service?
Yes, it's a memorandum of agreement, because our staff is, we're 100% federally funded,
right,
and they have to account for the hours they spend
of course,
on a local project that's not funded by HUD. So that's where we're at.
And then you've already billed the Department of Corrections for the $7,500.
Yes, we already did.
Okay, if I can, I'm just going to turn it because he's here. Attorney General Moylan, I know that I'm not going to go into the details of the MOU, but in terms of interagency memorandum of agreements, those are common in government. They can be useful in cases like when there's no support of maybe technical people. Would you agree or disagree in your opinion?
Mr. Chairman, why isn't the governor down here? You got all her people that are Keystone cops right now. What is GURA getting involved with fixing an air condition? I was down there. Air conditions are compressor, lines, and a few motors inside of it. Why didn't, and I was there as that thing was hot and women were you had an air-conditioned area where women were in there, and then you had a non-air-conditioned area where there was about maybe 30 local women that were in another part of it. And I just said, take those women and put them in the air-conditioned area. And I don't care if you have a federal detainee being mixed in with a local detainee. Your question deals with an MOU. Why isn't DPW handling this with their techs? This is an HVAC. Everybody that has an air conditioner on Guam, call up the tech, find out what parts are wrong, replace them. It's not like you're redesigning the whole darn system. Those domes that they're talking about, I saw those domes. They're one unit that's just shooting out cold air. If the compressor is down, and that's the most important part of that unit, call the governor if you need the emergency power, declare the emergency, get that compressor flown in from the states, or use your budget to fly in the compressor. HVAC, HVAC, HVAC. Nobody can live in those facilities without some air conditioning because they're closed. In the women's facility, there was some corrections officer that was literally standing in front of the door. I looked at him, and they had air fans blowing into a closed area. Opened that door, and it had bars in front of it, so the air blew through. That's that photo that made the PDN.
And so, again, let me just go backwards. I understand.
I'm talking about the MOU.
Yeah, right. So
the MOU deals with DPW that doesn't need to pay $7,000 of taxpayer money, that when you've got a facilities experts at DPW, get your tech down there, get that open purchase order that you have, and fix it. We are so low on our conversation here, dealing with darn air conditioners when people's rights are at jeopardy.
So my question was, is it a common thing that we have these interagency?
Of course it's a common thing.
Okay.
But the point is, the governor, it shocks the conscience to be listening to this, because we're talking about things that you're not paying a $150,000 supervisor to have to think about. We're paying $7,000 and we're not even getting the service. Then somebody's changing the facility area. What is GURA involved here for? That's my question. Why is GURA involved here? You got the governor, her chief of staff, and those people that are running this cabinet. Get them down, fix it, and let's move on to get the Butler building constructed. we've got a bigger problem of facing this government. And by the way, we're talking about a few detainees. The receivership I'm talking about isn't going to be triggered by the detainees. It's going to be triggered by the constitutional rights for our detainees. If I may ask the chair, how many detainees are they handling right now? Federal detainees.
As of December 15th, 2025 at 0044 hours, the Hagåtña Detention Facility has a grand total of 8.
8
inmates.
So 8
federal
out
detention.
Of, 8 out
inmates.
of 886. The lawsuits are going to come from the 886. I'm not worried necessarily about the little detainee numbers. The facility, if it's true that it's overcrowded, and I'm not going to make any admissions on that, you need a larger facility. You need more space for these people. So, you know, MOUs are commonly used in the government, but there's a common sense of who you make the MOU with.
That's right.
And that's where somebody needs to step back from this photo, this situation, and realize we are in a different universe right now.
All right. Thank you for your input. Let me ask DOC, what portion, and on the record, what portion of the $1 million authorization from DOC's FY 2025 appropriation of $5 million for a new prison has been expended pursuant to Public Law 37-144, enacted on December 28th, 2024, for the renovation, maintenance, and repairs of the DOC Adult Correction Facility and the Hagåtña Detention Facility, and the procurement of security system materials, property, vehicles, and equipment for these two facilities. It was the question that was posed by Senator San Augustine earlier. Again, what portion of that $1 million authorization has been expended?
I believe we spent $300,000 out of it. And if you go to Post 8, where the women, where he said we have to open the doors, now they've been cooled down with aircon systems that have been all installed for the Post 8.
Can you please provide to the committee the copy of that expenditure in terms of what you spent?
Yes, yes.
Okay, now with respect to the list of urgent repairs that was included in the public hearing record for Bill 368, which was enacted as Public Law 37-144, including but not limited to generator repairs at Post 9, Post 16, Post 25, and Post 30, plumbing and electrical, and fire safety equipment, smoke detectors, emergency lights, fire extinguishers for all posts. What portion of these facility issues have been addressed through GURA and DOC's collaboration to date?
Yeah. In terms of GURA, they helped us and assess with the women's, the Post 8. Of course, as
so when we look at all those projects, what portion? Give me a percentage: 1%, 2%, 0%, 25%, 100%.
I'd say over 60% of the that we had the assistance from GURA was for the.
So 60% of the urgent repairs have been completed at Post 9, Post 16,
no,
Post 25.
8. I'm just saying one of those posts, Post 8. You know, they have all the air cons installed there, I believe, or something.
Director, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
What is percentage based on this? How much has been done?
Yep. Well, I'll just say that the majority of it, and this is the way I can answer you there, Senator. GURA, you know, of course, that's what she said. The original was the domes, right? And
on the record, she just said that she's providing only technical support. They are not building it. So my question to you is, what portion of the urgent repairs? It's not a trick question. All I'm asking you is that it's.
But Senator, if you can bear with me, I can give an explanation why.
No, the other senators are going to ask you that, but we're just trying to get this down to what has been done.
Yeah.
So how much has been done to date on the urgent list of repairs on the record? Because I know there were some guys that were here. I wasn't here.
Yeah, I believe they've done an as she said, they've done an assessment of the Hagåtña Detention Facility.
So the answer
she
would
said
be
that in her
zero.
testimony, right?
The answer is zero.
She's done it. I mean, that was valuable for us to get the assessment.
No, I appreciate the assessment.
Yeah.
But the actual repairs being completed, the answer is zero.
Yeah, we haven't had any stuff for GURA.
Thank you. Yeah. To what extent, and you mentioned it earlier, have Typhoon Mawar related or other non-general fund or special fund resources have been secured to cover any of the facility repairs that have been identified through the consulting of GURA and your work at DOC?
Yes, they've identified, through their assessment, what's needed at the Hagana Detention Facility and also at the domes.
No, any other resources? We're able to secure resources from MOAR related projects.
From MOAR, you're saying?
Yes, I am asking.
I can't hear you. Are you saying MOAR from Typhoon?
To what extent have Typhoon MOAR related
Okay.
or other non-general fund or special fund resources been secured to cover any of the facility repairs that have been identified by DOC?
Yeah, I believe there has been some work from the recovery office that we've used some of that 300,000 for, that we may be getting reimbursed for.
So you have received no support for Typhoon MOAR related projects at the DOC?
Well, FEMA did approve, and I think from the recovery office, there's a matching, and I believe we did some work that I think Doris Kitchichu's on leave, but if she was here, she'd be able to provide.
Director, how much money have you received?
I would have to get back to the committee and trying to
Sir, with
find
all
out.
due respect, you knew we were going to talk about the facility here.
Yeah.
We've never talked about FEMA before or any related with MOAR.
That's correct. That's
so
correct.
in coming into this, I'm hoping that you and your office can provide back to the committee.
Yeah, we'll give
the
you
answer
feedback
for
on that, because Doris Kitchichu and has a lot of that information.
That's perfectly fine.
Right.
Now, in the November 7th, 2024 public hearing on Bill 368-37, you, Director Bordallo, testified that the measure, this is Bill 368-37, the measure would, quote, expend the revenues with the current funding for the new prison toward necessary work projects to improve and strengthen significant facility infrastructure and investment in security system resources, close quote. If necessary, was in your testimony. If you want to improve and strengthen a facility, as Senator Sabrina Salas-Matanani mentioned, and I think my colleagues might have mentioned, why have you not acted more quickly? And we wouldn't have an oversight hearing like this to further understand that you are not anywhere closer to addressing these projects today than you were on November 7th, 2024.
And I beg to differ there, Senator, that we've made some progress spending $300,000 in renovations, repair, and security systems. I can provide the committee more in-depth details of those expenditures, but that's a significant investment, and I thank the senators for ensuring that we got that $1 million for renovations, because as we can see, even with the situation with the HVAC breaking over there at Hagana, which has happened in the past, Major Huggins said this is the second time, every 10 years or something, 10 years ago, that HVAC at Hagana broke down, and that's not a new facility there. That's an aging facility at Hagana Detention, right?
I got it. Okay.
There's a lot of magic that I wish I could pull a rabbit out of a hat, but if it wasn't for my finance staff and my logistics people helping out, together with GRU and DPW, we wouldn't be able to achieve what we have right now.
Understood. Okay, I'd like to turn over to the senators now. Senator and Vice Chair of this committee, Senator and Vice Speaker Tony Addy, you're recognized. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Bordallo, why is there still $700,000 remaining in that $1 million appropriation? And here we are 1 year later since it's been enacted into law. Yeah. How come we weren't able to expend the entire $1 million on upgrades or facility maintenance?
Yeah, I believe when we got that, remember, I believe that was in 2024 around December, as the fiscal year was coming down to, as the fiscal year was sort of like, from October to December, and then we had to, really take a look at some of the changes we were doing, especially with the prison. A lot of the discussion, the prison master plan, right, and how some of that changes would have impacted what we're going to spend on, and but a lot of the focus at the time.
This didn't impact the master plan. This was specifically used for renovation, maintenance, repairs, and the procurement of security system materials, property vehicles. So why do we still have $700,000 remaining of this $1 million appropriation a year later?
All I can say is what we were doing the best in terms of getting as much of this, requisitions out, and The Department of Administration, GSA, works the best that they can, even with some of the turnovers that they have, to support us, right? And we sometimes it gets into that thing about procurement and how sometimes that sometimes can delay the process, and sometimes there were some. I'll just tell you this: there were some back and forth that we've had with GSA and stuff, with some of the stuff that we submitted. We even went to a transition of a new ASO that we have, Administrative Service Officer, Roma Okada, and she's doing the best she can as a new Administrative Service Officer.
At any point in time, was it ever mentioned to you or your ASO that this $700,000 is not available for expenditure?
I believe we're in that discussions right now about anything that regards to lapse funding, not only the $700,000.
No, this ain't lapse funding. This is a separate appropriation.
Yeah, a separate appropriation.
So,
there's some discussions on that we're having with BBMR and with Department of Administration.
So they're saying that this $700,000 is no longer available.
That's some of the communications that's happening right now.
So how is it that we make a separate appropriation for $1 million, and now you're being told that $700,000 is no longer available for emergency repairs to the Department of Corrections?
Well, you know, Senator, I think our discussions are still continuing with Department of Administration Director. I believe he's off island, and I had a discussion with Deputy Director on that yesterday, and I believe that we're reviewing our current FY26 budget, what it says about continuing appropriations.
But we're not looking. We're not looking, Director Berdalio. We're not looking at FY26 appropriations.
Yeah.
This was a separate appropriation
That's
from
correct.
the $5 million to the Department of Corrections to utilize.
Yeah.
So how is it that this money is no longer available?
And that's a discussion, Senator, I'm going to continue to have with Department of Administration Director. And
when was the last
BBMR.
communication you had with DOA about the remaining $700,000?
Yesterday with the Deputy Director. The Director's off island.
And the Deputy Director's communication to you, what was said?
What was said is she's going to continue to talk to Director Burns in regards to my concerns about the $700,000. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Senator San Augustine, you recognize you have 5 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It just kind of bothers me. You spend $300,000, but you can't pay $7,000 to Gura. That's kind of bothers me. Okay, have they paid you the $7,000, Gura?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Have they paid Gura the $7,000?
No.
Okay,
Not yet.
and that's what my statement was. You spend $300,000, Director, but you can't pay $7,000. It kind of bothers me. Now, going back to, gosh, I don't even know which public law to ask you, but Public Law 37-144, they mentioned the $1 million. How many RFPs have come out from that? Because you heard 300,000. How many RFPs have come out to spend money?
I'll check, but I haven't heard of any RFPs out from that yet.
So after you spend the 300,000, it's been dormant.
Again, I have to look at because I have to look at what and do the breakdown of expenditures we've had and some of the proposals to use. Because we had big ideas to use. I mean, we had plans to use, of course, what I had said here before the legislature with the $1 million to get as it was budgeted for. And there's some things that have been purchased, and there are things that have been put in place with the $300,000 that we spent on that. I'll get a breakdown on that.
Okay, only because, Director Berdalio, I'm just concerned that the clock is ticking, and it's not in your favor. And it's not in the favor of the Department of Correction. That's what my concern is. Every day that's gone by, there's no RFP, there's no Butler building, there's no money for Gura, there's... Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at your agenda and I'm like, Public Works, I hate to even ask him a question because I know if he's given a request, he just acts on it. And then the same thing with Gita, if there was a request, because several years back when we first introduced Bill or Public Law 36 as, let's see what number that was, 57, 5 million would have gotten 70 million for DOC. It's probably reduced now, that 70 is probably 30 or 40 million, but there's no movement, Mr. Chairman. If there's no movement, Hokuk Gura expertise, DPW will be doing what they tried their best and they're still pursuing it for Simon Sanchez. DOC will be asking the Attorney General to represent us at the receivership defense. That's what we're going to end up being. And that's what worries me more. That's what worries me more, because it'll reach the point where my colleague, Senator Duenas, will be like, okay, we have to shift money now because the receiver is going to tell us how much to spend at DOC. Like they did with, was that Waterworks? Or was it DPW? I mean, Hokuk. There's got to be more proactive movement. The oversight is great, but I'm trying to find a question to ask that's going to have an impact, because it's, like I said, I want to know how many RFPs, where are we at with the Marwar in Typhoon, fine, FEMA, matching and all that stuff. That's great, Director Bernardi, but we need to remind ourselves, FEMA money doesn't come in a year, sometimes 2-3 years out. For the folks that are in Governor Guam, they're familiar with that. It doesn't happen overnight. FEMA may say, we're going to match it. Matching, that's what it is. You end up just waiting forever for that money to come. Gov Guam has to foot it first. Pay for it, process it, and pray the money will finally come in. And I wouldn't be surprised if DPW is still waiting for FEMA money from when he first got into office. Mr. Arreola, I don't know, you want to comment to that, but Mr. Chairman, I'll reserve questions until we need to, because I like to see movement at DOC. I like to see not only the prisoners protected, but the staff. When I pursued the bill back in 21, it was to help the Gov Guam and the people of Guam protect us, protect the staff, protect the prisoners, avoid receivership, but we're not moving anywhere. And they're, like the Vice Speaker mentioned, there's 700,000 sitting. I know that if DPW or somebody else has 700,000, it's gone. It'd be gone so fast, it's almost like, can you give us another million? And I know that's what Vince likes to say. Another million, Fanzo? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just wait until we figure out where we're going.
Thank you, Senator Sanagasi. Senator Duenas, you're recognized. You have 5 minutes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, and I have to say that I share the frustration of the retiring speaker, and I know that I'm going to arrive at the same conclusion once again that I just said on the first round, and that is, you don't have a finance problem, you have an execution problem. So, Gura, thank you for being here, Ms. Napoli. There's really only one operative question for Gura that we have, and thank you for the Q&A that you provided. It's simply this: why is Gura involved at all? The answer is DEPCOR does not have an in-house facilities project engineer, while Gura does. The MOA allows DEPCOR to access technical expertise without transfer authority. Ms. Napoli, is that your statement, and do you currently have an active MOU to do this?
The MOA that we had with them was for the 4 domes, the HVAC at the 4 domes. So right now, we're trying to finalize the MOA for the Hagåtña Detention Center, because we found out that priority shifted to that. But on top of that, I have reminded DEPCOR that they need to pay the $7,500 invoice for the services already rendered by our A&E division. You know, we do have, and Gura's involvement in this is, we were asked, because we do have various or engineers that are certified in various areas, like we have a structural engineer, civil engineer, and HVAC certified engineer. And you know, when we are asked to assist with technical expertise and we're able to, we say we can do it, but we have to have an MOA and our MOA will specify exactly what we're providing. So, if we're asked, then of course we'd like to help the other agencies. We'd like to help DEPCOR. And that's why we're involved. It's not something we volunteer to do. We try to assist other agencies if we can. And we, of course, make sure that we get the delegation of procurement authority from DPW before we proceed with that.
Mr. Chair, I also sympathize with the statements from our Attorney General. The reality is that the buck stops at the top. We don't have that in front of us here right now. Fred, I don't even know how you proceed to procurement when GURA says you haven't commenced your agreement on payment of the original $7,000. I don't even know how you can get a technical advice to execute what you need for the amended MOU for DOC and Hagåtña when you wouldn't even know what to be going to procurement for. And I'm going to tell you, Fred, right now, and you need to write a letter demanding that $700,000. As far as the director and myself from Office of Finance and Budget and my committee, that $700,000 is your money. Like the Vice Speaker said, this is a standalone appropriation. I'm sure the former chair will agree with me as well, Senator Snugstein. This does not expire. These are your funds. They came from the fund that was actually allocated for your facilities. That fund is supposed to be there regardless. In fact, in discussions with investigative committee from legal counsel of Attorney General, it looks like that $40 million that was appropriated to GMH was actually the $35 million for GMH that was appropriated in the 2022 budget, in 2022 year, as well as the $5,000 from DOC. So that money's been appropriated. All these people that accused of funny money, there was never funny money. That $40 million was appropriated because there was appropriation authority that already existed since 2022. So Fred, there's not a money problem. And I encourage you when you leave here today and use my name as the Office of Finance and Budget Chair to write and demand Department Administration and BBMR to tell you why that money doesn't exist. That money exists. That money is there, and you should be able to go to procurement. But Fred, the problem here is not the money. The problem is as being discussed here, unless you can tell me that you didn't need that MOU, that you need the technical expertise from GURA, the issue here is simple. That without that agreement, without that technical expertise, without the ability to do that, you don't even have the ability to go to procurement. I don't even know what DPWs are going to do for you. Because you don't have an MOA with them, I don't believe either, unless Vince will say today that they can handle your technical specs and whatever else, well, then you don't need GURA. Mr. Chair, I have a previous commitment, but I just wanted to say thank you for having this Oversight Chair hearing. It's clear that it was necessary, and it's clear what exists here, unfortunately, and everyone on this panel are people I have high regard for. This is not, a bash session. This is an issue where the government is just not operating effectively here, and there are high consequences for it. And so, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to excuse myself, but say thank you for this oversight hearing. I don't know that we're going to get any answers today that are going to get us any closer to this procurement. Absent what I have said from the beginning, you need a declaration of emergency. You need to blow everything out of the water in order to do this. And like the Attorney General said, you need the highest level of attention on this, and that's the Chief Executive of the Government of Guam. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Senator Chris Barnett, you're now recognized. You have 5 minutes, and again, thank you for being here today.
Mr. Chair, if you would indulge me, I would like to read into the record the email response from DOA Director Ed Byrne relative to the issue that we're talking about now, the $700,000. Lapsed funds refer to uncommitted funds that remain in appropriation account at the end of fiscal year, which are then returned to the fund from which they were originally appropriated or allocated. These funds are no longer available for new obligations or expenditures, and this was sent December 11th. So I know that the committee has asked you to write a letter to Mr. Byrne. Do you intend on doing that?
Well, I'm continuing to have discussions with BBMR and Department of Administration, especially yesterday with Deputy Director of DOA. And one of the topics, as Senator Chris joined us, came up as standalone legislation. So that was
correct.
discussed.
So that should always be there, but we did, in the last few budgets, secure your lapses for your operations and all that stuff. So that should have rolled over. But yeah, obviously the 700,000 belongs to the Department of Corrections, and I think as the director, you have a responsibility to track that down. I want to ask, because much is being made about the timeline, November 24 to December 2025, and the implication that nothing has been done. So with that $700,000, were you able to make any effort to expend it? Was any of it tied up in procurement purgatory, or was it just sitting in the account?
No, I believe my finance team, and again, I credit Major Uggan and then our new Administrative Service Officer, Roma Okada, and the finance team working together. They have real good working relationships with DOA. And, sometimes there's been hiccups, but they're trying their best to work together to get as much of that. That we want to spend the whole $1 million. That's the ultimate goal for all the renovations, in keeping with the intent of the legislation, Senator.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, we're hearing a lot of things this morning, but the real solution is the construction of a new prison. And that's why I was very happy that we're able to get you the $5 million during the budget process. I mean, even over the objections of the chair of the committee. So I got to ask, the $7,500 though, do you have that? Can you pay Gura? And how soon can that be done? 7,500. Yeah.
I believe we're again, that's coordination with BBMR and DOA to release that funding for Gura as we solidify the new MOU with them for the detention facility.
And then, Ms. Director Napoli, if that 7,500 is paid and you guys are MPAS already, how would we move forward then with this collaboration?
So all the assessments have been done for all those facilities, and reports were issued to DEPCOR. And so I think the next step is to assist them with whatever technical advice they need regarding procurement and proceeding with the procurement process.
Thank you for that. And I think it's clear here, not just in this hearing, but in hearings that we've had in the past, because we've had every DOC director in here and we've asked them the same question: is it an emergency? Are you going to declare a state of emergency? Does the governor know it's an emergency? And really, unfortunately, without the support of all the branches of government, and the legislature, I think, has consistently shown that we support the operations and, providing resources that we can to the Department of Corrections. But unless that support is coming from the top, what we're going to see is, what we're hearing in this hearing this morning, and that's really unfortunate. And I hope that the administration's listening, and I hope you don't have to write a letter. I hope that they can make you whole and restore that $700,000 that we duly appropriated, that was yanked out from under your department. It's really an insult to the hardworking employees of the Department of Corrections who continue to face risks working in the conditions that they do, not to mention the risks and the conditions for the inmates and the detainees. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak, and thank you, Director Berdallo and Director Napoli.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Senators Salas Matanani, you're recognized. You have 5 minutes, ma'am.
When did you first hear about the $700,000 not being available?
This is about a week ago, several weeks ago, or something. Several weeks ago. I got to look at the time it was sent to me on the discussions that Major Uggan and Sarah Nedidog had at Department of Administration with the Deputy Director.
Okay. And as of yesterday, you've just been kind of talking about it? Are you fighting for it, or just accepting it? Or? That's
why I went down to the Department of Administration yesterday to talk to the Deputy Director, to see also the Director, but he's off island, to get into face-to-face discussion with him about the, funding for $700,000, the lapse fund.
Have you thought about maybe taking it to the governor or Lieutenant Governor?
We're again, it's in discussion, because even the Chief of Staff of the Governor, wants action to be taken in terms of the emergency procurement for the Hagåtña detention to get that place taken care of, especially with the
I'm sorry, did you
US
say you
Marshals.
spoke with the chief of staff?
Yeah, Chief of Staff has,
And was he
has an
supportive
interest on this.
of the 700,000 remaining with the Department of Corrections?
I believe he's aware of that because I shared the
Aware, or is he in support? Yes or no?
Well, I have to talk to him and continue the discussions with him. But
When's the
he
last time you
supports us.
spoke to
I
him?
believe the Chief of Staff supports us. Okay, supports
So
the
yes, you do
Department of Corrections.
believe,
Yeah.
you do believe that?
Yeah, and the governor and the lieutenant governor and the chair of the.
What about the 4
public
million? Do you still have the 4 million?
We're looking at that too because we see in our account the 5 million, right? That was
For FY
budgeted for
2026, but what
26.
about the 4 million from the
We're looking for
37?
we're looking for 4 million. And
Were you
we're
told
hoping
that you don't have the 4 million?
when on the communications that Senator Barnett had indicated, that to me translates that we don't have 4,700,000, and our ASO had mentioned that to me, Administrative Service Officer Roma Okada. That's why I was having discussions with the Deputy Director yesterday.
Okay, because I was only, I only heard about the 700,000, so now you're confirming 4 million
4
now.
million under the Modernization Act. Yep.
Let me just ask you, how would you rate your performance as the director of the Department of Corrections? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your performance? 10 being great.
Senator, you know what, for rating, I leave that I serve at the pleasure of the governor, right? And I leave it at her to rate my performance since coming on board in August 2023.
Maybe stop thinking about the governor, start thinking about the people and the officers that you serve. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I didn't hear that?
I just say, Senator, that I think the men and women of the Department of Corrections, we can do a climate survey and we can probably provide you the results of any rating.
I don't need to hear from the officers. I'm just asking you, how do you think you are performing?
I'm sorry, I wouldn't want to rate myself. With all the organizations I work with.
Thank you, Mr.
Chief of
Badalio. Thank you,
Police
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. We're now going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the development of a new DOC facility pursuant to Guam law. Senator, do you need to leave, or are you okay? Yes, you can. You're excused. Thank you, Attorney General, for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senators.
Appreciate you.
Merry Christmas.
If I can have Gita come up, if you could. And Merry Christmas there, A.G. Moylan and your team. I know that the Sergeant of Arms has already sworn you in, right, Tina? So you can go and have a seat in the front. And again, we appreciate Gita being here. On this issue, does anybody have any testimony they want to present before this? I'm sorry.
If I may I request that Gura be excused because
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
we actually
You don't have
have
any
no
part of this. Yes, I'm
participation in
sorry.
the prison task force. We don't have funding or anything like that.
No problem. Yeah, you are excused
Thank you
too.
very much.
Thank you for being with us this morning.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you. So does anybody have any testimony on this issue? Because if not, I can just jump into my questions. We can jump in? Okay. So if I can, and I'll start with maybe because Vince is here, but what is the status of the new RFP for the design for a new DOC facility, which we understand based on the committee received from DPW was submitted to the AG's office on October 17th, 2025. For DPW let me start with that one. Can you give us a status on the RFP if you have it?
Yes, thank you very much, Senator. Vince Ariola from DPW.
Yes, thank you.
We, based on our meetings with the task force, with DOC and the powers that be that we've been discussing, we put together this RFP and we've been working with the Attorney General's office pursuant to procurement rules and stuff like that. So the RFP is being reviewed right now by the AG. It's an RFP to design a prison facility, an additional prison facility for DOC. In our discussions with the task force, there was talk about putting the facility at the same place where the domes are at. There was discussions about putting it in front of the domes so that inmates will still stay at the domes while that construction is going on. I think the issue with that, though, was that if we were to construct it in front of the domes, which is, as I understand it, it's a clear, open piece of property within the facility, there's a fairly decent slope there, so there would have to be some a fair amount of civil work done during construction. But if that's where we were going to put the design, we'll handle that. There would probably have to be some geotechnical studies to make sure that a building of that size would be able to be erected on that site. I think we were looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, Director Fred, I think we were looking at a unit that would house 400 inmates. That's the number I've kind of been looking at, and 4, if not 5 stories high. We were going to go vertical, and so a lot of it was just the RFP. The way it's written is we give them the basics of what our needs are, i.e., we need a facility to house 400 inmates. We need some of the jail cells would house single, some would house double. I'm not sure if we had multiple in there also, and things of that nature. But this was my understanding, and in our discussions is similar to the discussion here. Is the DOC's priority is jail cells, prison cells. Nothing fancy. Nothing for mental health facilities, nothing for clinics, whatever, just pure 100% jail cells. So that's the RFP that's going out, that we put the scope out. And so the funding for that, I understand, we have $5 million funding for that. So once I'm not sure if that's going to be enough for the design, but we'll put it out and we'll see what we can get. It might be right at the tail end enough, but we'll put that out in the public as soon as we get the okay from the AGs. We might have one more pass at it, based on our discussions here, and if there's additional funding, one more tweak at it before we let it out to the public.
So Vince, let me just ask this. So we had 4 meetings about this with the committee. So are you saying that this effort that you just described is a bit different from our last discussion here at the Guam legislature? No one was here. They can only us here. But is this another?
This is
the same one.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, sir.
Okay.
Strictly for the design.
Because what I was going to ask is my next question was, when you think of this RFP, what would be the amount of time that will be needed to complete the work from start to finish on the RFP?
For design?
From your experience, yeah, the whole design part of it.
For the RFP or for the design?
Okay, let's start with the RFP first.
Okay, the RFP. So the RFP comes in from the Attorney Generals. Let's just say it comes in by the end of the month, right? Because they've had it since October. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, got it.
Let's call it the end of the month. We get all the okays. We advertise it within the next 30 days. We're probably going to give them probably a 90-day turnaround time to put the RFP together. We're into February, March, April. We're into April. On a receipt of an RFP, we rate it for another 30 to 45 days, make a decision on who the selection is for the proposer, and we award it within the next 30 to 45 days.
And the design process takes about 18 months to 2 years?
Probably about 12 months.
12 months, okay, got it. Okay, thank you for clearing that up. Okay, so based on your testimony, this is everything that's been on track since our discussion started this year, okay?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so now I was going to ask about that $5 million, but I mean, I think we're all befuddled. But that's out of your
that's not in my lane. But I do have to note to the committee, we can't go out to any type of bid, any type of RFP, unless we have an account number and there's money in the bank.
Yes.
I think at the very least, $5 million will get us a decent design. And depending on the meetings that we have, the preliminary meetings or the pre-proposal meetings that we have, you know, if the contractors come up and they say, if this is what you're looking to build, this is what you're looking to design, $5 million ain't going to get it for you, then we'll come back.
Okay, thank you
Cross that
so
bridge
much.
when we get there.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know that DLM is not here, but for the committee members that are here, prior to the start of the current RFP process that Vince is mentioning, there was no to do the design. There was no drawings of the current prison. So DLM was able to provide this summer a copy of that map to support that particular bid. Because I think in the initial RFP that was canceled earlier this year, they used the actual 1.2, whatever that amount was, the $1 million plus master plan from the U.S. Department of Interior that was signed off by the governor of Guam. So they went back, and this is for the people's edification, because this was also appropriated. So they used the plan as the design that was canceled. Now they have a map to be able to start the A&E work that was much more necessary for this process. Well, thank you again, Vince, for working with DLM. And I know he's not here, but I want to publicly thank Joe Borja for his effort to get that. If I can move now to Tina. Good morning and welcome to the People's House. I was just going to ask for Gita, if you could share with the committee any proposal. I know we had talked offline many different times about what your agency is working on for the new prison. In the event, that an A&E is complete, that could help move a new prison project forward. And I know you discussed with me, and I'll just say publicly, there could be annual appropriations for a certain term that might seem reasonable. Can you share maybe some insight into that? And I'll ask later if you can share the language for perhaps a public law.
Thank you again. Tina Garcia, Gita, CEO and Administrator. Our team has been working with DOC, with the Legislative Committee, and we have been providing information on the financing. Under the current law, the appropriation of $5 million. And with the recent cut in interest rates earlier last week, we could yield probably about $74 million in a project fund. But with that, we also, we've been talking about the different designs, but because the initial master plan did have that initial cost of $180 million. And so, you know, for the full design that they need. And so taking the step of going with an A&E to kind of work with what we have, then we would be better positioned to talk about what we can do for the financing. I also want to state that and bring it up to the committee that the current law states that Gita will issue the procurement for the developer. Recently, we've changed that, and DPW has issued procurement. So maybe that's something that we think about going forward. I mean, they've already have the expertise, but again, sorry, Vince, I didn't mean to catch you off guard, but you know, they have the expertise, and you know, we will support wherever we can, but that's the one thing we would add.
And thank you for that. And it sounds like Gita can assist the committee in crafting perhaps legislation to look at a funding source moving forward and finance it and help us build a new prison?
Right. The funding source in the current law is the general fund.
Yes, of course.
So it depends on what funds are available to fund the project. Right now, the $5 million is being reserved today. And so, you know, as always, whenever you want to increase, we got to look at who's going to get the cut, right? So we'll work with you definitely on this.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Tina. I'm going to go ahead now and move it over to our committee. I'll go to the Vice Chair of our committee, Senator and Vice Speaker Toniata. You recognize 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just have to, I don't think there's any other questions that we can ask because of the fact that there's no funding. And I think that perhaps maybe what needs to happen, Mr. Chair, is that we recess this committee, this oversight hearing until we can get Department of Administration in here as well to answer where the funding is for Department of Correction, because we can have all the RFPs or RFQs or whatever it may be, but if there's no funding behind it to go out and do these repairs for the Department of Correction, it's all for naught. So I think that perhaps after this today, that the director go back and, pen out some letters, find out what's going on, and we reconvene this oversight and not adjourn it, just recess it for time specific to get the questions answered that we have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I appreciate your input on that. Again, we're going to continue, but yeah, I do appreciate that today. I think it was a very fascinating discussion. Senator San Agustin, you recognize you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vince, Director Ariola, you mentioned the possible A&E for a 400 and how many inmates?
Like a 400 inmate capacity.
400 inmate capacity. Did you ever take a look at the what was proposed back in 21 when they first came out with what they're proposing? I think it was 1,000-man inmate capacity, correct?
Yeah, that was part of their master plan.
And it also met the requirements to cover the clinic and all the other amenities that are needed in a prison. You don't need a box because the way you're saying it, we're going to put a box building together, 4 walls, and that's it. You go in, you go out, no place for you to eat, no place for you to worship, no place for you to get any medical assistance. Kind of not like the kind of facility we're looking for. And I understand that Tina brought up from Gita that back then, when it was first proposed, because I was the author of the bill, we started with $5 million a year, and if they're saying they can get 70 million, then if you double it, maybe you don't need the 180 million. Maybe you need only like 120, and you can meet all the requirements to include the Gardner facility, package everything into one. Because at the end of the day, we just need to take a look at everything. So, like they mentioned, the 5 minutes available, once DOC goes to Gita and they start asking for it, then it starts rolling. Because you're looking for an account. You can't get into account till DOC secures it going through Gita to open that account so that you know where to draw the money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, Senator, we can, as you all know, we can only design, we can only construct based on what we have available.
That's correct.
Right, and right now, at least in the meetings that I've attended and we've been in together, the priority seems to be housing for inmates because there are 6 to a cell, there's 8 to a cell, there's commingling with all kinds of
overcrowded.
Right, it's just overcrowded. So these individuals need cells. Now that's not to say that within that certain design that's in the RFP that they don't have because there's requirements for prisons as well. You have to have certain things accompany prisons. So when I was speaking that it was strictly cells, it might have been off the cuff, but it's really just cells. No administrative building, no playrooms, nothing. No TV rooms, no big screen, stuff like this. It's strictly a prison, and whatever else ancillary rooms or facilities are needed within that prison, the designers know what the standards are. Yeah.
Understood. But see, my understanding is that when you ask for a 400 inmate facility, they're going to give you a 400 inmate facility. Because if you don't tell them what you want, they're not going to put it in. I mean, that's very simple.
Understand.
Okay?
Understand.
And at the same token, my concern is that it's almost no different than what's going on with Simon Sanchez. When you're going to build a facility for DOC, you got to have temporary housing. When construction starts, at any time there's an influx of population, made up or down, you got to have a place to put people.
Right. And Senator, and you're exactly correct, because we've discussed that. If a geo report comes back or the designers take a look at the property and they do some assessment and they say very dangerous to put a building in that spot, even for DOC safety reasons or logistical reasons with the land, and they say the only spot that we could really put it is where those domes are at, you're going to have to kick out how many people in the domes? 200?
180 to 200 people.
So we need to take those individuals out of the domes, put them in maybe some other domes, I don't know.
Maybe in a Butler building.
Something.
And that's what I'm getting at, is that, you know, as we're discussing building, we need to look at temporary facilities, and you know, the math has got to fall in place. Okay,
The designer should take care of that, though.
Yeah, but see, if it's not stated, it doesn't just take care of it. You know where I'm coming from, Vince. And that's what worries me. We can talk about everything about where we want to go, but we're not even talking about how we need to get there and the timeline. We always have to plan this out. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm good until you come up with another hearing, and then we'll discuss further and see where we're really going. Because I like to see the number of RFPs coming out. I think to see a lot of progress. 4 or 5 years ago, I was very hopeful that we were going to build a prison. I'm still hoping, and even Tina was there. We got to build one. Just like we need to build a high school. We need to take care of the hospital needs. And it's all going to be falling on your shoulders, Vince, and may God bless you. Thank you. Merry Christmas, Vince.
Understand. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. Senator Barnett, you're recognized. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Hey, si Diyos masi, Mr. Chair, and hey, Christmas is a time of hope, I guess. And as we're talking about the master plan, Director Berdalio, and I just wanted to ask you, in what ways have you deviated from this master plan? Because I know that you've really been pushing the concept of a jail over here in Hagåtña. I don't know if that's included in the master plan, but just if you could state for the record, in what ways have you deviated from this plan?
What ways have we deviated, as I said in my earlier testimony, how to reduce cost, you know, to be cost efficient, you know, is that even before the first phase of the master plan, the previous master plan, it estimated $20 million, and that was to tear down a Post 5, that's a disciplinary housing unit, and Post 24, which is a minimum amount. And then there was no information on, well, what do you do with those special housing inmates? And when you tear down a housing unit like Post 5, they can't be given to where the Post 17 and the general population there, discipline, the minimum amount. They discussed that they would be put over at RSAT, and that would close down the residential substance and treatment program. And that there was no communications with behavioral health. And then at the same time, procure 3 houses outside the fence was part of that previous, to purchase them for, and it would accumulate the 20 million. That's off the table. You know, there's even a person from Manila who came up to me, are you going to take our houses? And, you know, that's off the plan. So we deviated from not taking that off the table and just concentrating where the domes are at, which is the most vulnerable area, attempted escapes, all kinds of stuff happens at those domes that were supposed to be temporary. We fixed, and I would say the capacity, Vince, at 400, the capacity we're looking at is 4 pods of 168, which brings it to a total of 512 capacity holding basically cells.
Yeah, and that's kind of what concerns me is, you know, there's a lot of good in this master plan, and the more we deviate from it, and now we're talking about a facility for 400 inmates when, you know, the latest count of population, including the detainees, is up near 1,000.
Yeah.
So, you know, we see this all the time in the government of Guam. We come out with these plans that are supposed to guide us, and then we, you know, what's that? Taja plan, leche plan. We throw the plan out the window because, you know, the director of the month wants to move in a different direction. And that's really, for me, in my short time here, been an issue with Department of Corrections, is consistency in the leadership. And, you know, if you don't have consistency in leadership, you're not going to be consistent in trying to move forward. So with that being said, do you plan on leaving the Department of Corrections in April?
My focus is going to be on Department of Corrections at the present moment. That's what I want to focus on, what I can do to help out the situation of having a new prison fix up what's over there at the Hagåtña detention. I'll just tell you, Senator, that I have the best...
I guess we're consistently inconsistent then.
I have the best staff, right, and employees that are all dedicated, right, and doing their best with the challenges that we have, right? They manage, even with having to have those temporary domes that were 21 years old already, that should have been, that area is the most vulnerable, right? I think the majority of the uniformed staff are all in support and asking their political leadership from the governor to the legislature, let's take care of what we did with the prison planning task force and take care of it and build it right there where that dome's. Just like Post 16 was built several years back during, I think, the Gutierrez-Bordallo administration, but that was 2 pods, but this one is going to be 4 pods of 512 capacity.
So just to kind of clarify on the $5 million. So the $5 million that was initially appropriated as part of Senator San Augustine's law, this was the $5 million pot of money that we took the $1 million out of, correct?
That's correct.
And so you spent of that $1,300,000, and now Ed Byrne is saying, Tessina, you cannot touch the $700,000. And so what's with the balance of the $4 million?
Okay, Ed Byrne's communication, I believe, was communications about there are no lapse funds.
Right.
You know,
so is he
for
applying the same flawed logic to the 4.3 million?
The which one?
The one that had initially been set aside.
The one that was set aside?
Yeah, initially. I'm not talking about the new $5 million that we appropriated in the budget, which I'm
we
going
would
to
have
ask
had
about.
a balance of $4,700,000.
Okay, so that's gone. What about
Well,
the
we're in
$5 million?
we're in discussions with, like I had discussion with Department of Administration, Deputy Director.
More
and
better
we're
you
still
put it
bringing
on paper, Director Bordallo.
Yeah.
Right. So we can see the chain of the discussion.
Okay.
So with the $5 million that we appropriated in the budget session, what's the status of that? Who has that $5 million? And is it
no,
all
it's
there?
it's in our account, right, for the new prison.
Right.
Like what Vince Arreola, they'll use that for.
Okay, so I'm just making sure that's there. And I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, if we need to, moving forward, start tacking on language on our appropriations bills that say the appropriation shall not lapse until fully expended, which I thought was already the case, but obviously there's some, as my colleague from Tamuning likes to say, some shenanigans ongoing. So, and nobody wants shenanigans for Christmas, especially not our hardworking DOC family. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator Barnett. And again, thank you everyone for participating in today's oversight hearing. And today's discussion really was, if I could be very honest and bold, is to say it was an absolute necessary step in our broader effort to improve the health and safety conditions at the Department of Corrections. I want to thank the officers and the support staff of DOC for their work and for continuing to do their very best with the resource limitations of your department. Today's discussion is meant to help turn talk into action, policies into new facilities and programs, and fear and uncertainty into a safe and properly functioning prison, allowing for secure working and living conditions. The committee will review the information provided through this oversight hearing as we plan for the next steps, policy-wise. Let me just say this. It is one thing to resist public policy, but when those in authority lobby this branch effectively and then do not have the discipline to follow through, always comes back to why pursue changes in law in the very first place. I would like to see a policy that is executed. Then the work to put them in place was not by accident. Deliberate action from 2 branches. Please execute. This oversight hearing was not designed for policymakers to generate social media sound bites and political gotcha moments. I think you saw and you got to experience very genuine responses to very serious issues facing the Department of Corrections. The discussion today was intended to provide all of us with a real opportunity to get responses from relevant stakeholders, which are necessary in our decision-making process here as we consider drafting new bills or amendments to existing statute, which I think we got to today, as we consider, again, this, in this particular case, to help the Department of Corrections to meet its local and its federal mandates. There is much more work to do, and we need all of you to do that work for the benefit of all the people of Guam, and I want to thank you all for being with us today. With that said, the Committee on Public Safety, Emergency Management, and your Guam National Guard appreciates the attendance and participation of all senators, our elected Attorney General that was here, and the department heads who participated in this oversight hearing regarding DOC facilities. The committee looks forward to continuing our review of the information that was presented during today's discussion and the ones that we will be receiving relative to this issue as we consider additions or amendments to Guam law to help to address DOC's immediate and long-term facility needs. With that said, today's oversight hearing has concluded, and the committee will stand in recess until 2 p.m. today when we return for the second public hearing on Bill number 184-38 COR, including draft committee amendments. The time is now 10:58 a.m. Thank you all for being with us this morning.